another new shirt to show off. All right, welcome everybody to the season 9 wrap-up. Get comfortable, because we're going to be here a while. I have 10 pages of notes. In my mind, the season is kind of broken up into 3 acts, really. The first 5 episodes really serve to kind of wrap up all the stuff that was left over from season 8, right? Because you can't just drop those story threads and move on to something else. You have to wrap them up. But obviously she didn't want to spend too much time doing that, which is understandable. I like that there was a small time jump because it moves us a bit into the future so that the savior, the war with the saviors has kind of cooled off a bit, but there's still some tension, which is what we're dealing with for these first 5 episodes, or at least the first 4 episodes. The 5th one is just basically Rick's exit. And some of the stuff that happens in this first third, or this first act of the season, sets up character arcs for Daryl, Michonne, and Negan. So then the second act would be episodes 6 through 9. And basically that sets up what happens in the third act of the season. So we jump 6 years into the future, which when I first watched that, I didn't know how I felt about it because we'd already had a time jump and now we're having another time jump just 5 episodes later, which I thought was strange. And moving so far ahead was also jarring, right? Because you have to get used to the characters all over again. And for me, personally, because I had spent 2.5 years off of the show, it was disorienting because I came back from 2.5 years off. There was this small time jump. And so I kind of had to get used to everything, and I sort of had to remember like where everyone was and what was going on. And just as I was sort of getting used to, where we were and how things were going, and I started to get invested in the plots and the storylines that were going on, then we jump ahead again and it's this huge jump. And I just thought, why have the second time jump? Because they'd set up a lot of interesting things in the first 5 episodes. Why not just continue from there? We can have an episode grieving Rick and then we can move on. Well, I came to realize like that was the best choice that the writers could have possibly made, because they were able to, at that point, really wipe the slate clean. The saviors are just gone. We're not dealing with them anymore. And we move our characters, 6 years in advance. So they've had time to process, they've matured. Again, the deck is reshuffled, so people are living in different places, and, new relationships are formed and everything. And I think it allows for more interesting storytelling to just kind of, again, wipe the slate clean from all of the other, Gimple era stuff and just move forward to the story that Angela Kang wants to tell. But I have to say that episodes 6 and 7 in particular made me nervous because I was still waiting for The Walking Dead to fall on its face. I was like, okay, I don't know about this time jump. Looking back, I was really impressed by the first 5 episodes and how great they were. But looking back, I can actually see that maybe they weren't as great as I originally thought they were. But I think having that 2.5 year break really helped me, having some distance from The Walking Dead and how angry I was and how fed up I was with it when I quit. I think that, I came back expecting the worst. I started watching the show again because people were saying, oh, The Walking Dead's really good, but I didn't really believe it. I thought, well, maybe it's like a little better, but I didn't expect it to actually be good. I did not think that they could turn the show around. So I had very low expectations, and I felt just this huge wave of nostalgia when I started watching, because this show has been such a huge part of my life since 2011. That's when I started watching. So this has been just such an enormous part of my life, and I was just kind of overwhelmed with nostalgia and all of that. It was like wiping the slate clean for me too, you know? So I think that maybe I felt like those episodes were better than they actually were, because now having seen the whole season and how good it actually gets, there was, yeah, a lot of kind of shaky stuff going on in those first 4 episodes for sure. So yeah, I just had no faith in the show. I kept expecting it to fail. So episode 6 and 7, we were focusing so heavily on the new people, and it was just kind of like, you know, we have this time jump, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. You know, I thought like, well, is this going to be a gimmick? Would I even recognize these characters? Like, either they were going to be completely different, completely unrecognizable, or they were going to be exactly the same and it wasn't going to feel like time had passed. But actually, it was just the perfect creative decision, and I love it. I think that was the perfect thing. And what those episodes do, 6 through 9 really, is it sets up the main conflict for the rest of the season and moving into season 10 as well. It introduces the new guys. It sets up Michonne's isolationist attitude and the mystery surrounding the scar. It sets up the fact that Carol and Ezekiel are married and they are raising Henry. It sets up that Daryl has been living alone in the woods for the majority of the time jump with a dog. and it also kills Jesus, which sets up Tara as the leader for Hilltop. It was an amazing scene for our first like real introduction to the Whisperers. Everybody is converging at the Hilltop, essentially. You have Michonne escorting the new people to Hilltop. You have Carol taking Henry and Daryl to Hilltop. And then, of course, when everybody gets there, we find out that Eugene needs to be rescued. And so then we have our first conflict with the Whisperers. And then later we take Lydia and bring her back for interrogation. And that sets up everything else that happens. So it's actually really beautifully constructed how, you know, we have like this first act where we're just kind of wrapping things up from the past. And then we have this second act where we're just kind of like moving all of our pieces together on the board and getting everybody positioned in Hilltop. And then we move to the third act where we actually have this really amazing story to tell with the Whisperers, with Lydia and Henry and Daryl. And it's actually a beautifully constructed season. You know, one of the major problems that I had with the show in the past was the pacing. And it was because in Showtime, things moved so slowly that characters would get stuck. So moving on to episodes 10 through 16, this is when the show really got good for me. The interrogation of Lydia, introducing Alpha and the Whisperers, fantastic character development and interactions, compelling storytelling, there was a lot of tension, and I feel like the season overall was really character focused. Even though I enjoyed the plot that was taking place, it was we were really focusing on character this season, which is my interest, and that's, you know, that's kind of my lane. So love to see it. And then of course we have all those deaths, and we once again in the final episode reshuffle the deck. So we had a lot of characters killed off, and now we have, you know, the kingdom has fallen, and people have gone on to either Hilltop or Alexandria. So, you know, now I think we're really set up for season 10 and for a major confrontation, maybe a major war with the Whisperers. I don't know. Very, very excited about it though. And one interesting theme that I wanted to talk about from the season that I picked up on is kind of a caretaking theme, right? Most of the characters are now parents. Rick and Michonne, of course, they had Judith, and now Michonne has Judith and RJ. Carol and Ezekiel were parenting Henry. Maggie has Herschel. Aaron has Gracie. Jerry has 3 adorable children. And then we have our, what did Negan call it? Quadrangle, our love quadrangle, right? With Rosita, Gabriel, Sadiq, and Eugene. So, you know, 3 of them are about to become parents, and Eugene is, you know, kind of the odd man out, but he was indirectly sort of caring for Rosita's baby and certainly caring for her with his weird grafts and, you know, being Eugene. But, you know, there's definitely like this theme of caregiving there. Negan bonds with and protects Judith. Even Earl and Tammy Rose, who are characters that we were just introduced to this season, they adopted a baby. Of course, R.I.P. Tammy Rose. I hope we see more of Earl and the baby in season 10. If you really want to stretch the metaphor, Enid and Tara were also kind of put into caregiver roles. Enid as a doctor and Tara as a very competent and caring leader of Hilltop. And then of course we have Daryl caretaking for dog, right? He has his dog to take care of, and then later takes on Henry as has his ward, and now he has Lydia, which has so much potential, and I really hope that they develop that relationship, and Daryl really is some kind of a proper caregiver for Lydia. And it was called out not once but twice by Aaron that Daryl would make a good father. He says it in the episode, it might be The Bridge, I'm not sure, but when they were working on The Bridge, Aaron is talking about his daughter Gracie to Daryl and tells Daryl that he would be a great dad. And, you know, Daryl kind of blows it off, of course. And then later on, when Daryl takes Henry and Lydia to Alexandria to patch up Henry's leg, Aaron again makes the comment, you know, something like, I said you would be a great dad. So I really hope that they lean into that relationship with Daryl and Lydia a lot, because that's something that I really want to see. Now I'm going to talk about the communities. This is kind of a weird structure, but I thought it was maybe the best way to go about it instead of going chronologically. So first of all, we're just going to start off with Oceanside because they're not even really present, right? They're not seen, they're not mentioned. You know, after the Oceanside people, like basically after the time jump, Oceanside disappears. Except for that one random woman, that leader of Oceanside who shows up to sign the charter. They are not mentioned. There is not a single line that I can recall, not a single line of dialogue, not a single reference to Oceanside whatsoever. And that's really bizarre. It's really bizarre. Will Oceanside come into play in season 10? I would imagine, since they were there to sign the charter. I still think it's kind of shaky storytelling. Like, give us something, right? We don't need a lot, but give us a conversation. You know what I mean? Let some Oceanside people, you know, pop in. Like, why wasn't Oceanside at the fair, right? Were there Oceanside people at the fair? I don't know. It's very bizarre. Moving on to Alexandria. So Alexandria to me is the least interesting place, both in like the actual set is just less visually interesting for me. and also the people who live there. None of that is really super appealing to me. And I think it's because of the whole, you know, sort of McMansion manufactured community kind of thing. That doesn't appeal to me in real life. It certainly doesn't appeal to me in the zombie apocalypse. I like the idea of, you know, living in a prison or, you know, just like living in a factory, a more interesting setup. So Alexandria is just really boring to me. Whenever we're there, I'm just kind of bored. You know, I don't know. I just don't find it appealing or exciting in any way. We didn't spend much time in Alexandria though, which I was thankful for. And when we did, we were mostly with Negan, Judith, and Michonne. And that was all really, really interesting. The council is interesting. We haven't had a council since the prison. I do think that we need more people in the council. We need to have more branches, right? You know, they need to work with other communities. And maybe we'll get some of that moving forward. And then, of course, again, we have the love quadrangle there. So, you know, that was probably the least interesting thing, but it wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it, and they didn't spend too much time on it. I think if they'd really spent a lot of time on it, or if they had really amped up kind of the melodrama of it, then it would have bothered me. But we spent just enough time with it. These are all characters that I care about more or less. Siddiq, not so much. I mean, he's fine. You know, and even like Gabriel isn't really a character that I care about. But I care about Rosita, I care about Eugene, and like I said, they spent just enough time on it, and they did not lean into the melodrama at all. Like, everybody's acting like reasonable adults, which I appreciate. And I love Negan, you know, not acting like a reasonable adult and trying to, you know, trying to kind of spark some drama there in episode 16. I love Negan. I love Negan. Who would have thought? And speaking of Negan, so we have Judith and Negan, which is one of my favorite things about this season and one of my favorite relationships this show has ever produced. I am so in love with them. They are so adorable. I would imagine, I don't know how that little girl got cast, but I would imagine they probably auditioned a lot of little girls against Jeffrey Dean Morgan to find one with the right sort of chemistry, because they have beautiful chemistry. It's perfect. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is one of those people who has chemistry with everybody, but they really found a match for him in that actress who plays Judith, and they're so great together. And, you know, the whole function of that relationship is for Negan's redemption, right? That's his redemption arc, is going to be through Judith, and they've done it beautifully. I I did not like the sort of mini arc that he got in the first 5 episodes, or the first 4 episodes or whatever, when you think that he's you know, he's still his same old self, and then he's crying over Lucille, like he just wants his bat. Looking back on it, I guess what they were going for is trying to show how broken he was. And it is kind of cruel. It doesn't seem like they ever let him out of that cell. It seems like perhaps he doesn't get any sunshine or exercise or anything at all. So that would break you for sure. But crying over his bat was just silly, and I didn't like it. So I did not enjoy his sort of mini arc there in the beginning. But once we had the time jump and it was Negan and Judith, oh my God. And of course that episode when he rescues her, it's just amazing. And I'm curious what they're going to do with Negan moving forward, because it's it would be more interesting for him to not be in a cell, right? But how do you reintegrate Negan? How do you do that? And, you know, honestly, and I was going to talk about this when I got to Maggie, but it's kind of a good thing that Maggie is gone, because you couldn't really reintegrate Negan with Maggie still around. It's going to be hard enough with Daryl. I would like some scenes between Daryl and Negan in season 10, but I could not even imagine what that would be like, or how that's going to go down, or how Daryl is going to react. I can't even hazard a guess. But yeah, I feel like they need to get Negan out of that cell. And I'm just really, really intrigued about what they're going to do with Negan, because I love him. I feel like the redemption arc has worked. And it's hard. It's still hard to look at him and not see, you know, the guy who killed Glenn. But, you know, now mostly when I look at him, I just think of him as kind of like Judith's cool uncle. You know what I mean? I associate him with Judith rather than with killing Glenn, which is exactly what they're trying to do, and it worked. So, you know, Michonne is another one who I feel like her character arcs. She had 2 arcs in this season, and both of them didn't really work for me. They were both pretty shaky. So yeah, I really had mixed feelings about her arcs, but I do like where that character ended up, where she ended up. So in the beginning, were they trying to tell us that she is just like Negan or similar to Negan? Because I don't believe that for a second. We had this very bizarre thing where and I feel like they didn't, like, maybe some of that ended up, you know, cut out of the episodes or something, because there was this scene where she's got like a smudge on her forearm, and Rick comes in to talk to her, and she looks down and she notices it, and she kind of like cleans off the smudge. And the first time I saw that, I was like, what's that about? And then later we see her talking to Negan, and she puts like her arm like up against one of the bars of his cell, and she looks down and she like wipes it away. And I was like, okay, so they're trying to tell us that she's maybe been visiting Negan, and maybe she wants to keep that secret from Rick, which is weird because she wasn't like doing anything wrong. Like, she wasn't being friendly with him or, you know, doing anything that Rick would disagree with. So I thought that was kind of strange. And then there was this whole thing with her, like, with Negan, like, trying to tell her that she's just like him, which they're actually nothing alike. I mean, they're both smart. They can both be ruthless when they need to be, but, like, they're not anything alike that I can tell. So I just thought that was a very strange thing that they were doing with Michonne's character in the beginning. And then after the time jump, you know, they turn her into this isolationist, and, you know, it's fine to do that. But what I didn't like was this big mystery. Like, why did we have to have this big mystery? Like, the big mystery surrounding how she got the scars and everything. The fact that you know, she has some kind of beef with the other communities, with Tara and with Maggie in particular, which is never explained. Like, she and Tara patch everything up and they hug, and I guess everything is okay in 9:15, which is great, but it's never explained what happened. And Maggie's departure is not explained at all. So I think that was a very bizarre choice. And just kind of like what happened, her habit. It feels like perhaps they wanted Michonne to have this sort of isolationist attitude because they wanted the communities to come back together at the end. So they were sort of working backwards. Like, we want the communities to reunite, at the end, but there has to be a reason for them to have been apart for all this time. And so they were kind of working backwards from that point. And I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I feel like they could have gone a different way with it, but it wasn't terrible. It just, I feel like Michonne was pretty unlikable for the entire season, honestly. I didn't hate her. She wasn't terrible, but I feel like she wasn't a very likable character, and she wasn't, you know, I said that I was afraid after the time jump that I would not recognize characters, and I feel a lot like that did happen with Michonne, that she was just so totally different. And I don't know, I didn't think there was quite it didn't quite land for me. I don't think the payoff was there, so I kind of wish that they had done something else with Michonne. So Rick is a fucking legend, right? He is an icon, and I love him. However, I'm going to say something pretty controversial. It was refreshing to have him gone. I like The Walking Dead better without Rick. The thing is, I think it would have felt like more of the same with Rick around, and with him gone, we really got to, you know, other characters got a chance to shine. We really got to shake things up, and I think it served the show well, and in particular, it served Daryl really well. I feel like it could have served Michonne really well if I had liked what they'd done with her character. But it definitely also served Negan really well, because again, you couldn't do this stuff with Negan with Rick around. Just like you couldn't do it with Maggie around, you couldn't do it with Rick around either. So it served Negan very, very well. Like, Negan could not get anywhere near Judith, right? If Rick was there, none of that shit's happening. So it's definitely served Negan very well. And I thought, like I said, I thought it was really refreshing for Rick to be gone. And I feel bad. I feel like a traitor saying that. That's how I feel. It worked for me, and I'm glad he's gone. I'm also glad that he's not dead, and I'm looking forward to the movies and everything. I don't know, Scott Gimple, I think, is involved, so maybe I'm not looking forward to him. It was just a nice change of pace. The thing about Rick is that he, from the beginning of the series, he always seesaws between wanting to be the leader and not wanting to be the leader, right? He says he's going to give up leading, and he doesn't want to be involved, and then it's the Ricktatorship. And he's done this for 8 seasons. He was doing it in season 9 as well. This season, he tells Maggie that he wants to step back, or Maggie makes the statement. She points out that he said that he was going to step back and let Maggie lead, but he hasn't been. But the thing is that Rick makes all of these unilateral decisions, but if anybody else does, he gets pissed off about it, right? So the fact that he decided to imprison Negan, he just decided that on his own. And clearly, there are people who disagree with that. He decided to take in the saviors and work with them, even when there's resistance among the saviors. He banishes the guy responsible for Aaron losing his arm instead of putting it to a vote. Like, all of these things should be put to a vote. Like, okay, you take Negan and you stand him up and you're like, okay, what do we do with this guy, right? Maybe it's, you ask all of the communities. More likely, yeah, you have some kind of a council, right? Some kind of a jury. Like, what is the consensus? What do we do? And, the same thing with the guy who, although I did love that exchange between the guy who was responsible for Aaron losing his arm and Rick. He was just like, I know you. We got the Rick Grimes head tilt, we got the squint, and it was a beautiful scene. It was It was beautifully acted. Like, it was so good. But yeah, it's just yet another unilateral decision that Rick makes. I think he was a little too focused on rebuilding the bridge as a symbol of rebuilding society. There's a really great moment when Daryl and Rick are arguing in the pit, when they fall into the pit. And Rick says to Daryl, I never asked anyone to follow me. And Daryl says, maybe you should have. And I think what Daryl is saying is that, you know, Rick expects people to fall in line and do things his way. He does take charge. He makes all of these decisions, and he doesn't stop to ask other people. Like Rick, you know, he's not a dictator. Like, he will take in, if somebody has a concern, he will take that into consideration, but ultimately Rick's gonna do whatever Rick wants to do. And so I think Daryl was making a really good point there that, you know, he never, like, yeah, maybe he should have asked if these people wanted to follow. Maybe he should have asked the saviors if they wanted to join their communities, because someone, I can't remember who it was, but, you know, someone said to Rick something like, oh, you know, they're going to work for us and we're going to protect them. Who does that sound like? Because, yeah. So, see, I think it would have been so much more interesting if there was this comparison between Rick and Negan. Like, it's obvious, like, it's the obvious comparison, but it's far more interesting than comparing Negan and Michonne, right? Because they're not actually anything alike, but Rick and Negan are quite a bit alike. So I think that would have been a much more interesting comparison and a much more interesting thing to do with both Rick and Negan in the first, you know, 4 episodes of the show. And I loved what Negan said to Michonne when he, like, I think in episode 16, where he says, you know, nobody thinks of themselves as the villain. And he's talking about himself in that moment, but I think that could be applied to Rick as well, right? Because I think keeping Negan prisoner could actually be pretty selfish on Rick's part. You know, he's holding it up as, like, you know, he says he doesn't want to kill Negan because that turns Negan into a martyr. Is that really true? I don't know. It depends on, like, we don't get a really good idea of how the majority of the saviors feel about Negan. We know that there's a small resistance, but how many Neganites are there really? We don't actually know. So it seems more like Rick wants to keep Negan prisoner as a way to kind of stick it to him. You know, because he literally goes in there and rubs it in his face like, oh, we're rebuilding society and the communities are flourishing and everything is great. And he's really just rubbing Negan's nose in the carpet. You know what I mean? And I think that he's holding it up as this, like, sort of altruistic thing, like he's it's like a monument to Carl, right? Because that's what Carl wanted, which I thought was bullshit in season 8. And that was another one of my problems with season 8. But, you know, that's how he's holding it up. And of course, Daryl in that conversation in the pit tells him, like, you know, you gotta let that stuff go. You gotta let Carl go. Carl was like 15 years old anyway. Carl was great. I loved Carl, but he's not exactly, you know, Yoda. Like, he doesn't have all, like, we're really going to default to a 15-year-old sense of morality. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I just think that it was kind of selfish on Rick's part not to, you know, hold some kind of a trial, hold some kind of a vote or something about what to do with Negan. I think he wants Negan around so he can stick it to him. I really do. And I don't think that Rick knows that. Like, I don't think that's an intentional, like, I don't think that's a conscious thing. I think that's just something deep down. But he believes that he's honoring Carl, and he believes that, you know, again, what he says, that it would turn Negan into a martyr. I think that's Rick's truth. That's what he believes. But I think that there's actually some deeper motivations there. And I wonder if the show is trying to tell us that Rick is wrong, right? Because there's all this tomato symbolism with, you know, in the beginning of that one episode where he takes the tomato, he puts it on Carl's grave and everything, but then the tomato, like another tomato, gets eaten by one of the saviors who've like gone rogue, and then a tomato gets stepped on and smashed at the end, and it's kind of like the tomato is like the symbol of society, of community, and it gets squashed. So yeah, I wonder, there was a few other things like that too, so I wonder if the show was actually trying to tell us that Rick was wrong. The Kingdom, I'm very sad that the Kingdom fell. That's one of the things that they didn't do a very good job of. They did just enough. They mentioned it multiple times that the Kingdom was struggling, but they didn't really tell us. All they did was show us some broken pipes until episode 16, and then you know, it's like all the fires raged and everything, and you saw that the buildings were like all burned, and you know, a bunch of shit went down, I guess. But they didn't really set that up very well, and it's a shame because it was, you know, and it looked like it was flourishing. It looked like it was thriving the whole season. The Kingdom, we were told, wasn't doing well, but it looked like it was doing well, and it looked beautiful during the fair. And yeah, I'm sad to see the Kingdom be no more. And I absolutely adore the royal family. Oh my god. I liked Ezekiel since he was introduced, but he wasn't like one of my favorites. I completely fell in love with him this season. Carol has always been, since season 3 anyway, one of my favorites. Maybe even season 2 when she was so sweet to Daryl. Yeah, Carol is amazing, and it was so nice to see her happy. It was so great to see her genuinely happy. And like, this is a weird thing to comment on, but I love her look. I love the hair. I love her clothes. The whole time, the whole season, every time I saw Carol, I was like, where can I get her outfit? And that's not something that you usually say about people in the zombie apocalypse, right? But the costume design in general this entire season was so good. I feel like there's only a few characters who've ever had like interesting clothes, and I feel like Daryl is one of those people who, you know, if you look at him, like, he has so many interesting things going on with his clothes. He's got like shoelaces tied around, and he's got all these like things on him and everything, and you feel like with Daryl, like, everything must have a purpose, right? You know, he's got his pant legs tied up, and, you know, he does all these interesting things costume-wise. But not a lot of other characters have that. So I've never really paid attention to anybody's clothing, but every time I saw Carol, I was just like, I want her outfit. She's so beautiful. Oh my God, Carol is just, oh, she is a queen. She's a queen, and I loved seeing her as an actual queen, and I loved her accepting that title. I think she had so much great chemistry with Ezekiel. I love them together. I adored them so much. And it was, you know, it was nice for her to have Henry. It was so sad. It's so sad that they killed off another one of her kids. I just can't believe that they did it. And, but like, there was so much, you know, Carol's story has been so sad. Like, everybody's story has been sad. But, you know, Carol has been through a lot of shit. Again, so has everybody, I know. But there are certain characters like, you know, like Ezekiel. We don't know too much about him, but obviously he's been through shit too. But he has this idealism and this optimism. And Carol is, you know, more of a pessimist. and a realist. And, you know, I love that about her, but it was so nice to see her genuinely happy. But also, she didn't lose her edge, you know, which is important that to me, because I still want Carol to be, you know, the Terminator that she is. But, you know, the one woman army that she is. But you know, I like seeing a lighter side to her as well. I'm a little concerned for what's next for Carol, because yes, she lost her child, she lost her marriage, she lost her kingdom. I'm sure she cared about the community, she cared about the people. And so she kind of lost all of that. But I was really glad in episode 16, you know, she tells Daryl that she feels like she's losing herself again, but actually it didn't seem like she was gonna flip-flop, you know, back to how she was when she, you know, she ran away from everybody in season 7? I don't know, when she went to live in that little house all by herself and everything. So, you know, I hope that she doesn't lose herself in season 10, and I hope that she gets to take out Alpha. But I also just love her bond with Daryl so much, and that's something I hope that they lean into in season 10. Now that she is with Daryl in Alexandria, I feel like she and Daryl have not lived in the same community for eons. You know, I mean, maybe since I'm trying to remember when she actually left Alexandria. It could have been in season 6. It could have been in season 7. It's been such a long time, and I have not rewatched the show, so I don't remember, but I feel like they have not lived in the same community for a very, very long time. So now that they're both in Alexandria, I hope that, you know, we spend a lot of time with them together, because they are literally my favorite thing about the show. Daryl and Carol, that's my favorite thing about the show. Oh, back with Ezekiel. Yeah. So Ezekiel, I adore him. You know, he's such a good man. He's too idealistic for the world, like for this world, but somehow, you know, he's made it this far, and we know he's a competent leader. I wish we knew why exactly the kingdom fell, but I did always see him as a competent leader, as a good king. You know, his people always love him, so I hated seeing him sad, but it also seemed like he was pulling through at the end, which is true to his nature. So I hope that this isn't kind of like the end of Ezekiel. I hope they give us a lot more interesting character development for him in season 10, because yeah, pairing him with Carol is a really great way to give him some good character development, and also with, you know, with Henry. We didn't see Ezekiel very much, but I feel like what we saw served him well. And so I'm a little afraid that he might fade into the background, but maybe he'll end up being the new leader for Hilltop, because Hilltop needs a leader. So we'll see what happens. And I don't really have too much to say about Henry that I didn't already say. Yeah, I think that Henry was a good kid, and I think that he was just a little bit too naive, a little bit too idealistic. I can see, you know, where he got it from, but I think that he was a good character. I think they did some interesting things with him, and I think that they ended that character in the right place. His death is going to, you know, certainly further Carol's character arc. His death sets up a lot of story going forward. Okay, so moving on to Hilltop. Wow, they've had a lot of leadership trouble, haven't they? So it started out with Gregory, right? And then Maggie, and then Jesus, and then Tara. So yeah, who next? Like I said, maybe Ezekiel. I don't know. I kind of thought that Daryl was going to end up as sort of the de facto leader, but now he's at Alexandria, so I don't know what's going to happen. So first of all, and the Hilltop is my favorite location. I just think it's interesting. I really like all of the characters who live there. I find them the most interesting, the most appealing characters, particularly this season because Daryl was also there. You know, Daryl is kind of our main character now, and with him living at Alexandria, I feel like we're going to focus a lot on Alexandria, but Alpha, I feel like Alpha would, if she was going to attack, she would attack the Hilltop. So I don't know. Anyway, so, you know, Maggie's one of those things that Maggie was not served well at all. She's hardly served at all this season. What I liked was that, you know, Maggie was the perfect leader for Hilltop. She was a farm girl running the food producing community, or at least the community that produced like the bulk, it seems, of the food. But I am so tired of her. Like, her character has been stalled out since mid-season 6. And this is one of my issues with the pacing of this show in the past, because the show, in Showtime, things moved so slowly that characters get stuck in arcs. So, I mean, Maggie was pregnant for 2.5 years in our time, in real time, because all of season, like from mid-season 6 when we find out that she's pregnant, all the way through season 8, all of that takes place in just a couple of months. I mean, she wasn't even showing at the end of season 8. So she got stuck from mid-season 6 when, you know, Glenn was hiding under the dumpster. She's been stuck in this either grieving widow or angry widow mode. And it just does not, like... It has not done her character favors. Like, she is just one of the least interesting characters to me because she doesn't ever get to move forward. She doesn't ever get to move past what happened to Glenn. And, you know, like I said, they couldn't have done what they did with Negan if they'd kept Maggie around. So I think it was actually the better choice to have Maggie leave. And I know that she actually left because of like a contract dispute, and then she ended up going over to another show, and then I don't think that show got picked up or anything. But I think that it actually was a good thing because it allowed for a much more interesting story with Negan. I just don't think Maggie's character has a lot of interesting story left to tell. But it's completely understandable that she would hate Negan and that she would want revenge, and she would be pissed at Rick for, you know, again, unilaterally deciding to lock him up. It's completely justified. Like, it's completely understandable how Maggie feels. Just from a narrative perspective, it's stale. I'm bored. I want to move on, but I don't think that Maggie can move on. So I am sort of mildly spoiled in the fact that I think that Maggie does come back in season 10, but I don't know if that's actually for sure, or 'cause that's just something that I remember kind of hearing, but I don't know if that was just speculation or if that actually is the case. And is it permanent? Does she return to the show, or is it just like for an episode or like a small arc or something? I don't know. But I would be interested, but kind of cautiously interested. I almost kind of, again, I really kind of like Maggie and Rick being gone. Sorry to say, because I feel like that's just a lot of old Walking Dead stuff that I kind of just want to be done with, and I kind of want to move on to new stories and new characters and new... I just think it's those characters are kind of bogging the show down. Whereas I feel like there's still a lot of interesting stuff that we could do with Daryl, a lot of interesting stuff that we could do with Carol, a lot of interesting stuff that we could do with a lot of these other characters that have been around for a long time, and, you know, maybe we haven't focused on too much for a while, or, you know, like Daryl barely spoke 2 words in like 4 seasons. So, you know, there's a lot that can be done, and I don't know, I feel like the show has maybe just kind of moved past Rick and Maggie, or maybe just I don't know. I think that Negan is a much more interesting character to focus on, and since we can't do this stuff with Maggie around, it's best that she's not around. Back to the stuff about the leadership troubles in Hilltop. So yeah, Jesus, I think Jesus could have been a really great leader, but he was always more comfortable as sort of like a confidant to the leader. So I can understand why he would be reluctant to take over. I think Jesus and Tara would have been an interesting combination if Tara had stepped up as the actual leader and he could have been her confidant, because I think Tara actually had a lot of leadership abilities. So anyway, Jesus's death was sad, but it does make me feel better to know that the actor wanted to die, and it was a really cool scene. So I do miss Jesus, and there was a lot of potential for a relationship between him and Aaron. I hate to be like, oh, we've got, two gay characters on the show, so let's get them together. But actually those characters have really great chemistry, and I think that they would actually be really great together, and the actors have really great chemistry too. So I just don't want to be like, hey, let's put the two gay guys, like let's pair them up, but I actually think that that would have worked really, really well. So it's kind of a shame that Tom Payne wanted to leave. I can understand that he was frustrated with his character, but it's kind of a shame because I think that they really could have done something interesting. Like they could have given him some interesting material if he just stuck it out a little bit longer. Because yeah, I think they should have just flipped it and had Tara in charge and Jesus as her confidant, her right-hand man, which is the natural role for him that he's more comfortable with. And then yeah, have him in a relationship with Aaron. And it's kind of I don't want to say like forbidden or whatever, but the two communities, like they had to meet in secret. So that was already kind of interesting, and it could have been even more interesting if it was a romantic relationship. So I feel like Jesus was a little wasted, but again, it makes me feel better knowing that, well, Tom wanted to leave and it wasn't just like they were writing off this character for no reason. So, and then Tara, Tara still makes me sad. She had matured so much, and but she didn't lose her that lightness about her. She was so sweet and funny. She's one of the few light-hearted characters that we still had left. I think Jerry is kind of maybe the only one at this point. So it's really sad on another level, that, yeah, Jerry is kind of the only lighthearted character. So, but I think she would have been a really great leader. We just, we didn't get a lot of it, but I think she really cared, and it's really a bummer. But, yeah, and again, her leaving Alexandria was not explained at all, So that was weird too. Anyway, and then, we have characters like Alden, we have Earl and Tammy Rose, who were great. So sad about Tammy Rose. And we have the new people at the Hilltop as well. Like, I just love all of these people. I think there are so many interesting characters at the Hilltop. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite place to hang out. Dr. Enid, she was great. I swear the show can never allow for more than one doctor at a time. But, it's really a shame that they killed her because she had a lot of potential. Really, story-wise, she and Tara probably both had like the same amount of potential, honestly. I think seeing Enid, show up as a teenager, and now she's, a pillar of the community. She's a doctor in one of the communities. Like, that's so great. And, she had this whole arc because she was training, right? She was the one who had to amputate Aaron's arm back in, before the time jump. So she had been, a doctor, apocalypse doctor, for a while. And I would have liked to have seen more of that. And I just think that there was a lot of potential for her. So it's really a shame that they had to kill her. But I see why they went with her, because it was very effective emotionally. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I struggled with a lot. Like, did they do right by Enid? Did they do right by Tara? And I don't know. So I think that it's definitely safe to say that Daryl was served best in this season. He has become the main character. Maybe not strictly speaking, but he's the one present for all of the major events that take place. I believe he's in every single episode. I could be wrong about that, but he's in most of the episodes. And yeah, we really focus on Daryl's kind of point of view and his perspective. In the first few episodes before the time jump, he was still full of anger and resentment and revenge. And I can understand, right? All the Negan stuff, the Sanctuary stuff, or the Savior War, that was all really fresh. He did not agree with Negan being held prisoner, which I understand. And, you know, he was being forced into a leadership role that he didn't want, that he wasn't comfortable with. Daryl was not comfortable in this new society that Rick was creating, and he was kind of resentful of the fact that he was sort of being forced to participate in it. And not just participate, but to lead, and lead at the Sanctuary of all places. Why would Rick put him at the Sanctuary? That was baffling to me. Rick should have been at the Sanctuary. I can understand that he wouldn't want Judith there, like he wouldn't want his family there. So Rick can sacrifice and, you know, split his time between leading the Sanctuary and, you know, going back to Alexandria to see his family. I don't really know how far apart these communities are, but I don't think it takes more than a day to get there. So he can certainly sacrifice instead of putting Daryl in that position, and a position that he clearly hated being in, right? He hated that. That is not who Daryl is. Daryl isn't really a leader, at least not in the way that Rick wants him to be a leader, right? You know, he's kind of wasted in that role. Daryl is best as a scout, as a mission leader, as a tactical man, as a soldier. You know, he's a character who gets shit done. He doesn't want to stand around like giving orders. And again, he was traumatized at the Sanctuary. Why would you make him stay there? I just didn't understand that at all. And a lot of the people at, you know, a lot of the saviors at the Sanctuary seem to kind of worship Rick, right? So it just makes the most sense that Rick would be there, or send Carol. I mean, she wasn't married to the king yet, right? So send Carol. I mean, you want someone to put the hammer down, you fucking send Carol, right? You want to scare the shit out of the saviors? You want to keep them in line? Send Carol, right? So I don't know. I just, you know, I really, again, I love Rick, but I really sympathized and sided with Daryl when it came to, you know, everything that was going on. I really love that confrontation between Rick and Daryl in the pit, which I talked about a bit earlier. But I really liked that because there had been a rift between those characters for some time. And because that was Rick's last episode, it felt right. Like they needed to have this conversation. And, you know, and Rick called him brother, which it's been a long time since he called him brother. And so that made me feel really good. They were having this really interesting, like, philosophical conflict over how to rebuild society. And, you know, Rick wants to return to, like, civilized modern society where we, you know, defeat the army and then immediately work with our former enemies to rebuild. And Daryl argues that that society is gone. I don't think that either one of them is necessarily 100% right, but I certainly sided with Daryl. I mean, you know, how can we live and work with these people who have caused so much damage? Like, why should Cindy be expected to live and work alongside a rat, the woman who murdered her little brother and taunted her about it. I mean, how does Rick think that's going to work? But I think that there was kind of an obvious third option, which was to, just ask the saviors who wants to be a part of our communities and let the others go on their way. Like Alden was a savior, but he is now a trusted member of the Hilltop. And so yeah, you just ask the saviors, you ask who wants to join these communities and let the others go on their way, and you have some kind of a trial or some kind of a vote or something about what to do with Negan. And that's just not something that they even discussed. And again, it seems like Rick kind of wants these people under his thumb. He wants control over the saviors, but he just doesn't want to admit it. And he wants to believe that his motivation is pure and altruistic, but I don't think it is entirely. Like, Rick is a good man with a good heart, but I think that maybe he doesn't completely understand his own motivations. And I think that Daryl and Maggie and Negan all see through that. But, so I loved that we kind of wrapped up Daryl's, arc from the past few seasons with that, that confrontation with Rick, and with Rick calling him brother. And then, of course, after Rick's death, Daryl spends years looking for him. I mean, he said he was never going to stop looking. I don't know if he was still actively looking for Rick every single day, like 6 years into, because it's implied that he's been out there. Because when we see the flashbacks, Michonne is pregnant and Daryl is out there searching for Rick. And it's sort of implied that he stayed out there the whole time. So he's been out there for the entire length of the time jump. And, with another character, somebody else, you would feel sorry for them. But that's what Daryl wants. He wants to be alone. And, he had Dog, which is great. That's how Daryl feels comfortable. And we know that he can take care of himself. But it's also important that everyone knew where he was. He didn't just disappear. He was off doing his own thing, but he wasn't completely removed from society, from his friends. Like, they knew how to find him. I think part of his staying out there was also to, like, a kind of as a defense mechanism, right? Because he lost Rick and because he doesn't fit into society. So he just, like, removes himself from society because he doesn't fit in. He doesn't feel comfortable. So he just removes himself. And because he lost Rick, I don't want to say that he doesn't want to get close to people because he's already close to people, but I feel like it's just kind of a protective measure for him to just kind of be by himself. But he obviously doesn't want to be completely alone because he has a dog. But also, he doesn't give Dog a proper name, right? He calls the dog Dog. So that also makes you feel like he doesn't really want to form a bond with Dog, but clearly he has because he risks his life to save Dog. So I just love the complexity behind Daryl Dixon. Like, he is just such a complex and interesting character, and I absolutely love that he got to be front and center in this season because there's so much interesting material. Like, there's so much possibility for that character. You can do so much, and he was not given anything to do, at least not anything that I found particularly interesting for like 4 seasons. So it was so wonderful and so refreshing. And, a lot of people, I think, did not expect Daryl to be able to carry the show. And, I said that I started watching the show again because I'd heard that it was good, but I also knew people who stopped watching the show because Rick was gone. And they did not think that, you could refocus the show on Daryl and that he would pull that off. And, he absolutely did, in my opinion. I also think that it was absolute perfection that Daryl is the one facing off against Alpha this season, because you have a survivor of child abuse facing off against an abuser, a child abuser, right? It's absolutely perfect. And one of the questions that I asked my Buy Me a Coffee members if they had any questions about season 9. And one of the questions I got was, how do I think the season would have gone differently if Rick was still around after the time jump? And honestly, I think that the season really could have played out the same, but it would not have had, like, the mechanics of the season could have played out the same, the plot could have, but I feel like it would not have the emotional impact. I don't think Rick facing off against, Rick versus Alpha does not have the emotional impact for me as Daryl versus Alpha. So, I think that if Alpha had rolled up to their gates the same way and it was Rick negotiating the trade, Rick always wants to be, well, most of the time Rick wants to be diplomatic, right? Sometimes it's the dictatorship, sometimes he just wants to kill people, but generally speaking, Rick wants to work together, he wants to work it out. So it's, I think he would have approached Alpha in that way, like, let's talk about it, Lydia wants to stay with us, can we work it out, can we work together, that kind of thing. Unlike Daryl, who just storms down there and is like, no, you ain't getting her back and we're gonna light you up. Right? So but I think ultimately it would have gone the same way, that there would have been a trade for our people for Lydia. And I think that, Henry going off to save Lydia, I think Daryl would have been the one to go after Henry. I think Rick would have sent him if he didn't go on his own. So I think that kind of would have played out pretty much the same. But of course, you wouldn't have had these interesting story arcs with Negan. You wouldn't have had these story arcs necessarily with Michonne. I feel like that would have gone really, really different. I feel like none of that stuff with her, none of that stuff in Scars would have happened if Rick was around. Certainly Judith and Negan wouldn't have happened with Rick around. So yeah, a lot of things would have had to have been like rewritten. But ultimately I feel like the main sort of plot, the main story that they're telling of, the Whisperers and Lydia, like, I think that Rick would have had Daryl interrogate Lydia, because again, Michonne is the one who says, like, you're the man for the job because you're the best damn judge of character. And that's something that's been set up since season 2, that Daryl is an incredibly good judge of character. I mean, they were setting that up with him. He was the one interrogating that kid when they were trying to decide what to do with him in season 2. Randall, I can't believe I remember that kid's name. But yeah, it's been well established, and that's kind of part of his whole thing with what the fuck was his name? Discount Daryl. Dwight. That was kind of the whole thing with Dwight, because Daryl could see that he was a good person, and so he, tried to save him, and then Dwight betrayed him, and, they had that whole thing, which I absolutely hated everything about Dwight. I hated that character tremendously. Anyway, but, it's been well established that he's a fantastic judge of character. And so, yeah, I think he would have been sent in to interrogate Lydia. So I do think that the season as a whole would have played out the same if, even if Rick was there. But it wouldn't have had the emotional impact of having, Daryl be kind of the one squaring off with Alpha. And I talk about that. I'm trying not to repeat myself too much in this season wrap up, because if you watch my extended review for 9:15, I talk about a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have talked about because it's like season stuff, and I kept saying, oh, I'll talk about this when I get to the season wrap up, but now that I've already talked about that stuff, I don't want to repeat myself. So really you should listen to or you should watch the extended review for 9:15. But yeah, that's something that I talked about in that review, was that I love the relationship between Daryl and Lydia because they are so similar. They are both victims of child abuse, and they're both kind of, you know, feral and kind of damaged, and like they just have, they're so similar, and I really want them to lean into that relationship. And I think that could help Daryl heal by taking care of somebody who is, you know, so similar to him. And you know, we couldn't have given that storyline the focus that it got if Rick was still around. We couldn't have given Daryl in general the amount of focus that we did with Rick around. And I prefer Daryl as a character. I think he's more interesting. I feel like Rick has run his course as a character. So again, it feels like I'm really hating on Rick. It feels like that's how it sounds, and I love Rick and I think he's an amazing character. I just kind of feel done with him and ready to move on. And I think that, you know, Rick has actually been pretty repetitive. You know, like I said, he's been on this seesaw that so many of the other characters, you know, they tend to do this with characters, have them seesaw back and forth between, you know, two opposing positions. You know, with Morgan and his all life is precious and then clear mode, right? And it's just not interesting. But Daryl has always been, in my opinion, far and away the most interesting character on the show. I think Carol is the best character. I think she has consistently been written the best, but I think that they've done the most interesting stuff with Carol consistently. But I think that Daryl is the most interesting character on the show, and so I just really love him being given more to do. And I think that Norman Reedus is really underrated as an actor because he has the ability to pull off so much, you know, subtlety and nuance in his face and just in his body language and his performance. Like, you know, he just does certain things, right? He does certain things, like he bites his lip, and he just, like, he embodies that character so beautifully. And it's really a shame that he hasn't been given much to do. So, certainly, you know, much dramatically. Like, he's been given a lot of action to do, but he's not been given a lot of dramatic material. And so I loved getting to see this. And also, Daryl this season is so much more confident. He's matured. He's more comfortable with himself. And I love that. I love to see that. And I love him. And so I'm just really, really pleased with what they've done with him this season. And I'm not going to say too much about the Whispers or Alpha or Beta. I think that they are really well done. I'm really interested. Alpha is fucking terrifying. Beta is like some kind of, you know, Jason Voorhees, some kind of Michael Myers villain. But, you know, because he's super scary, but also, like, he should have died falling down that elevator shaft, and, like, he had a knife in his chest and didn't seem to even flinch about it, so that's kind of crazy. But it works, and so I'm really interested. I don't have a lot to say about them, though, just that, yeah, they were very effective, and Alpha is fucking terrifying. She just makes your blood run cold, and she has great chemistry with Norman Reedus. Like, those actors have great chemistry, and the actress who plays Lydia, I thought that was just, they had really, really great chemistry, and that was kind of, those were some standout performances when we had scenes with those characters. So I'm very excited going forward. But I don't want the Whisperers to overstay their welcome. I do want to wrap up the Whisperer arc in season 10, and so that we can do something different in season 11. I don't want to, and again, this is something I talked about in my 9/15 review, but I don't, you do have diminishing returns every time you have a confrontation, but nothing really happens. Like, I mean, you could look at it as like raising the tension for a big war, if there is a big war. But if there isn't a big war and this just kind of keeps going on, then yeah, it does feel like they are less terrifying with each encounter. But I feel like you don't show us that pit of zombies, right? You don't show us that quarry or whatever full of zombies and not give us, a herd coming in and overrunning one of the communities. So I'm afraid that we might lose another community. I would hate to lose Hilltop. And I really even wouldn't want to lose Alexandria either, because we don't have very many communities left, right? I guess they could overrun Oceanside, but why? So I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of like Chekhov's zombie quarry, right? Like, they show it to us, they gotta use it. So I feel like we haven't had a huge herd come and overrun or threaten a community for a while. We've had smaller herds that we've dealt with, but not like, I feel like probably we haven't had a massive herd since the season 6 premiere. So, I did a section in my notes where I just kind of did pros and cons, and I'm not really going to go through everything because I've pretty much talked about this. I will mention though that there was actually a lot of bad Walking Dead bullshit, like a lot of technical issues, bizarre shots, bad editing, terrible CGI. We had some unrealistic dialogue. We had a lot of instances of them like not caring about details. So not everything has been resolved, but it was much less in this season than in previous seasons. That's pretty much it. I mean, I've been talking for a very, very long time. I'll talk about a couple more characters because I really want to talk about Connie. So Connie is amazing. I love her. She is smart. She's resourceful. She's empathetic and kind. And, I just right off the bat, she's heroic and she's a badass. I absolutely loved her, and I love her paired with Daryl. I hope that becomes a romantic thing because they're adorable together. She makes him like adorably awkward, and I would love to see that side to Daryl. But she's such a good match for him, even just as a friend. Like, that's such a great pairing because she first of all, she's also a tracker, which I love, and that makes sense because as a deaf person, her senses would be heightened, so that totally makes sense. And I think she sees through Daryl's defenses and kind of calls him out. I love how he has to look at her in order to communicate with her. I just think that she is the perfect match because Daryl is like, his head is not going to be turned by some pretty face or whatever. Like, you need to show Daryl Dixon competence, and Connie has done that, and I think he's really impressed by her. And I love the way that he looks at her, right? It's not something that we've seen. I cannot recall ever seeing Daryl look at another character the way that he looks at Connie. Like, I think he's surprised by how competent she is. And I think you can see how much he respects her, and he's kind of, he's really impressed with her, and I love it. I love it so much. And Dog likes her, which is important. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where that relationship goes. And I'm just really excited for Connie in general. I think she's so interesting. I love that they have an actual deaf woman playing a deaf character. It makes it more authentic. And it just it's just such an interesting thing. Like, how would somebody with a disability, but in particular that disability, handle you know, living in the zombie apocalypse. Like, if you can't hear danger coming, if you can't hear walkers, that's especially scary. But yeah, I just love how, you know, tough they made her. And I think that they really are building her up to be an important character. I feel like what they did for Connie in this season is very similar to what they did for Daryl in season 2, because, you know, Daryl was immediately liked, you know, from season 1. He was kind of everybody's, you know, he was kind of a standout from season 1, but I think he became everybody's favorite in season 2, when they gave him a really sympathetic storyline with him searching for Sophia and him kind of bonding with Carol. So I feel like they kind of did a similar thing with having Connie rescue that baby, and then she, you know, she goes off to rescue Henry and Lydia with Daryl, and she will not take no for an answer. And so yeah, I mean, it shows you what a good person she is. And also they gave her kind of a tragic backstory that we only got hinted at slightly, but maybe she lost a baby or something like that. So I think they've made her a very, very sympathetic character and a very interesting character. And I'm really excited to see what they do with her. I feel like they're building her up to be something important. You know, to be an important character. And I think they've done an amazing job, and I think that actress has done an amazing job as well. And yes, she and Norman have great chemistry too, so that helps. Like, the characters have chemistry, the actors have chemistry, and that's really important. And so, you know, I would like for it to be romantic, I really would, but even if it's not, I think that that's a great friendship that I hope that the show really leans into. You know, I talked about Lydia pretty extensively, I think, in my 9/15 extended review. I think that she is fantastic, and I'm very, very interested in Lydia. And, you know, they have hung so much narrative on her that I hope they keep her, you know, I hope that she is a main character going forward. And I just really like what the actress is doing, and I hope that they lean into Daryl and Lydia. So I don't have too much to say about her that I didn't already say in 9/15. But yeah, I like her a lot, and I'm really interested in Lydia going forward. I feel like they did a great job with Judith. She's like this perfect embodiment of Rick and Carl, which is funny because she really shouldn't remember either of those characters. And, you know, she's not Rick's biological child, so really she shouldn't take after Rick, but you know, who cares? This is fiction, and that's what we want to see, right? We want her to be a Grimes, and she is. And I think that actress is doing such a great job, and I just love her with Negan. I love her. I have loved her with everybody, that every single person she's had a scene with. I thought Judith was fantastic, and usually kids in these shows, or in any shows, really don't interest me, but she's doing a great job, and I adore her. So, one spoilery thing that I do know is that Michonne leaves. I don't know if it's during season 10 or if it's after season 10, but I wonder what that means for Judith, because I would hate to lose Judith. So, I don't know. Maybe she'll stick around with, you know, Uncle Aaron or something. That would be great, because I wouldn't want to lose her. All right, I know that I left out a lot of things. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about. There was a lot of stuff that I probably wanted to say a lot better than how I said it. Anyway, fantastic season. And I am so ridiculously excited for season 10. So that's it. That's all I've got for now. Thanks so much for watching. If you watched all of this, you're amazing. And I'll see you next time. Bye.